Welcome to Debate the News, True Crime Edition. Before we begin, a quick disclaimer. This podcast includes strong language, frank discussions about crime, and sensitive topics that may not be suitable for all listeners. Listener discretion is advised. For those listening to the podcast, we're broadcasting on Chatter Social, the interactive social audio platform that lets you jump into real time conversations, connect directly with hosts and guests, and share your own perspectives. Download the Chatter Social today on the App Store for Apple or Google Play for Android and become part of our next live discussion. Throughout today's episode, we'll periodically reset the room to ensure everyone stays engaged and caught up. If you are new or you missed previous discussions, including special deep dives into specific cases, we encourage you to go back and listen wherever you find your podcasts. This is episode 3. The first two were, well, killers. And remember, if you have a personal connection or any insights in today's topic or location, please join in and share your perspective. Next, let's dive into Debate the News Crime Edition with my co host, and I'm so excited to introduce you to Joseph. Take it away, Joseph.
Okay, so we're going to start with December 25th to 26th, 1996, the initial events of the Jonbenet Ramsey case. Christmas Day, 1996, the Ramsey family, John, Patsy, 9-year-old Burke, and 6-year-old Jonbenet, spent Christmas at their home in Boulder, Colorado. They attend a Christmas party at a friend's house and return home around 9:30 p.m. According to Patsy Ramsey, Jonbenet was put to bed around 10 p.m. Around 5:30 a.m. on December 26th, Patsy Ramsey discovers a 2.5-page ransom note on the back staircase demanding $118,000 for Jonbenet's return. At 5:52 a.m., Patsy calls 911 to report Jonbenet missing. Between 6 and 7 a.m., police arrive, and they begin searching the house and the surrounding area, but they do not conduct a thorough search of the entire house. Friends and family members are called and arrive at the house throughout the morning.
Any sound? Mic check, mic check.
Yeah, we hear you, but Jonathan just went out.
Joseph, you're out.
Okay, sorry, my bad. Okay. December 26, 1996, the discovery. 1 p.m., Detective Linda Arndt suggests John Ramsey and his friend Fleet White search the house again. 1:05 p.m., John Ramsey discovers Jonbenet's body in the wine cellar, a small room in the basement. She is covered with a blanket, has duct tape over her mouth, and a cord around her neck and wrists. John removes the duct tape and carries her body upstairs, potentially compromising the crime scene. Cause of death is later determined to be strangulation with a garrote made from a cord and a broken paintbrush handle, with a skull fracture as a contributing factor.
So now the investigation begins. Initial investigation is criticized for multiple failures: failure to secure the crime scene, allowing too many people in the home, not separating the parents for questioning, and not conducting thorough interviews immediately. The ransom note is determined to be written on paper from a pad found in the Ramsey home. Handwriting experts ruled out John Ramsey as the author, but cannot conclusively determine if Patsy Ramsey, the mother, wrote it. January 1997, the Boulder police request formal interviews with John and Patsy Ramsey, which are delayed. And in April of 1997, the Ramseys moved back to Atlanta, Georgia.
Key developments 1997 to 1999. April 30th, 1997, the Ramseys participate in a CNN interview, maintaining their innocence. October 1997, Boulder police assign new lead investigators to the case. December 1997, Boulder District Attorney Alex Hunter takes over the case from the police department. June 1998, DNA found in Jonbenet's underwear does not match any Ramsey family members. September 1998, a grand jury investigation begins. October 1999, grand jury votes to indict John and Patsy Ramsey for child abuse resulting in death. But DA Alex Hunter refuses to sign the indictment, citing insufficient evidence.
So the developments between 2000 and 2008, March of 2001, retired detective Lou Smith, who had worked on the case, publicly states his belief that an intruder killed Jonbenet. December of 2003, new DNA testing identifies an unknown male profile from a bloodstain on Jonbenet's underwear. June of 2006, Patsy Ramsey dies from ovarian cancer. And July of 2008, new touch DNA testing actually excludes all of the Ramsey family members. DA Mary Lacey formally exonerates the Ramsey family based on this DNA evidence.
Recent developments. October 2010. Boulder police reopened the investigation. January 2013. It is revealed that the grand jury had voted to indict the parents in 1999. October 2013, previously sealed court documents are released, showing the grand jury had indicted both parents. December 2016, CBS documentary The Case of JonBenet Ramsey suggests Burke Ramsey may have been involved. Burke files a $750 million defamation lawsuit against CBS, which is later settled. 2018 to present. Ongoing investigations using advanced DNA technology have yet to identify the killer. In 2023, the Colorado Bureau of Investigation assembled a panel of experts to conduct a cold case review of the JonBenet Ramsey murder. The panel recommended steps Boulder PD should take to find the killer, but the police won't release what those recommendations are. A spokesperson says they're giving them serious consideration, but won't say if new DNA tests are being conducted. This case remains one of America's most notorious unsolved murders after nearly 30 years.
Before we begin tonight's discussion on the Jonbenet Ramsey case, we want to acknowledge that we are discussing the tragic death of a 6-year-old child. Our intention is to approach this topic with the utmost respect for Jonbenet, for her memory and her family. While we'll be examining the facts of this case, we do so not for entertainment, but to understand the complexities of this unsolved case and the broader issue it raises about child safety, media coverage of crimes involving children, and our justice system in the United States. We ask our listeners to remember throughout our conversation discussion that at the center of this case was a real child whose life was cut tragically short. Joseph, do you want to start some of the questions to get the discussion started?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, this case is, one of the most notorious. I remember it from when I was a kid, like being at the checkout counter at the grocery store and seeing the National Enquirer cover stories about this and being like, who's that girl? Like, it was that memorable, this case.
She was absolutely beautiful too. I remember myself the same year. I think I had a baby in 1995, and it was my third son. So I happen to just love girls, love daughters, and I honestly, personally, I did not think anything of like the mother shouldn't have had her in the, in the outfit or having her be part of the beauty pageants. That did not go through my head. But I'm curious whose head it did go through. For me, it was just the tragic loss of a beautiful daughter and then finding her in your own home. I just really couldn't even wrap my head around that. Joseph?
Yeah, I didn't really, of course, at the time when I was younger, when this happened, fully understand. But now as an adult, going back and revisiting this case and looking at it, it's really crazy to me the way the media portrayed this. They really vilified the parents and really, in my opinion, nitpicked at a lot of different things that the parents did wrong or that they could have potentially done wrong. There was a lot of theories that were thrown out there that, in my opinion, really weren't backed up by evidence. Um, so going back and looking at it and looking at the evidence versus what was portrayed in the media, I really don't feel that the parents were involved at all. But I'm interested to hear what everyone else thinks about the case.
Let's open it for discussion, and you're welcome to raise your hand or just on mic. And we just ask that we do not have two people talking at the same time. Who would like to start? We're kind of curious to ask you the first question. How do you think that extensive media coverage, it was everywhere when you went grocery shopping, all the People magazine, all the, I mean, you name it, had on the front cover, beautiful Jonbenet Ramsey. Who would like to share your thoughts and opinions?
Well,
Hey, go
I'll
ahead.
lead. I'll lead off. My brother is a retired polygraph examiner for the Secret Service, and they in the training exercises they did to be a polygraph examiner is pretty intense. And they listened. This is all they watched the Bill Clinton 1999 deposition, a couple other ones, and they watched the John Bonet, the Ramsey parents when they did that CNN interview. They studied that. It's his opinion that the mom was being deceiving, whatever that means. I'll just leave it at that. It was pretty interesting to hear his feedback. This was years ago. I remember talking to him about it. But the mother was being deceiving within that interview. So, and I've kind of come to the same opinion. I mean, I'm not an expert on the case, but I just don't know who breaks into a house randomly, goes upstairs, grabs a girl out of the bed, takes them downstairs, all in the meantime, write a note, and then kill her and then leave. That 99% of those cases happen within the family. So I'm just going to go with statistics. My ignorant opinion and guess. I'll go mute.
Matt, first of all, thank you. That is so interesting to hear, actually. So, and yeah, it sounds like something that I would remember too if someone told me that. But you kicked this discussion off. And by the way, if you're listening to this podcast under the Debate the News channel, this is True Crime Edition, and we are live on Chatter. Come on to Chatter and join the live conversation. We are live Tuesdays and Thursday nights at 7:30, and we're doing the deep dives on the weekend. So Matt brings up an amazing point, and what I want to let's hear. I want come on, who's going to address this about what Matt said? Do you think that if it was you, put yourself in Patsy's situation, how would you act? What would that look like? What is it supposed to look like? I think I would be so nervous, like just hoping that I was acting like a mother that like just lost her child. So who's going to take it away?
Hey, I'll bite. I'm trying to recall a few things, but I don't know. I guess my intuition. The one thing about finding the male fiber, I don't, or the male DNA on the underwear, that always, I guess, gave me pause, and for some reason, I always believed the father. I something about the mom, I didn't believe. And I think there was a lot, and I can be wrong, so please somebody come in and correct me with the facts. But from my understanding, the handwriting, it doesn't make sense. Sometimes you have to look at things in retrospect, right? I was a young woman when this happened. I was still a teenager when this happened. And then I look back now over the years and I think about, does that make sense? Out of all the things I've seen done, have heard, have watched, some ransom note, it just doesn't make a damn lick of damn sense. Think about it. It just doesn't make a sense that some intruder, breaks in specifically, just to kill her. And it's a possibility. She was a beautiful young pageant star that could have gotten some like, obsessed serial killer or some crazy person to break in, to come into the house. And I can't remember if there was any forced intrusion. I can't remember those details. So whoever has that information, please unlink next. But there's a possibility. But you think about it, like this doesn't even make any sense. And they find one little fiber. I mean, there's no significant type of DNA just to kind of leave a ransom note and kill her. It just the two plus two plus two is just not equaling four. Okay, I know that's six, right? Okay. Anyway, so what I remember about her handwriting, that the handwriting was inconclusive, not because they couldn't rule her out, because part of her handwriting did match that damn note. And I think at the time, I think right now, I would love for that note to be analyzed. If anybody wants to do that quick research to see if AI has tried to analyze that note now or something along that lines, but maybe the technology wasn't as advanced as it is now. I don't know if they went back later, but they said that there was like some kind of strokes on her handwriting that matched that note, that also, some of the fibers was actually on the duct tape of her personal sweater, or some kind of, yeah, something like that, right? And yeah, that's all possible because she lives in the home. But, and I'll be honest, I did think maybe the 9-year old had something to do with it, and she did what any mother would do, was cover it up. And what her motive could have been, I'm not exactly sure if she did do it. But all these years, it just doesn't sound right to me that somebody comes in, kills her, leaves a ransom note on, what I'm saying, on the door, and she just so happened to be down in the basement, just a 6-year old in the it just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. So that's kind of where I'm at with that. I don't believe in after all these years, I don't believe in the intruder story.
Joseph, we want to hear from you. But before we do, I just want to introduce Coach Kelly, who is taking the care of the chat. So if you have any questions for those that are on Chatter Live, if you have some questions and you don't feel like speaking out, Kelly will do that for you. Joseph, first of all, can you answer the question on how the intruder broke in, what that looked like, and then discuss a little bit about what Vashan was saying about the DNA? I can't wait to hear from you.
Yeah, absolutely, Vishan. There's a lot of people who feel the same way that you do. They feel it doesn't make sense. There's a lot of inconsistencies. Um, the intruder theory, if I'm recalling it correctly, it didn't seem like there was a sign of forced entry. I think there was a window open, but there weren't signs of forced entry. When it came to the ransom note, it was alleged, or there were theories, that the ransom note was written using a pen that was inside the home. There were also people who were trying to say that it resembled Patsy's handwriting, but I don't think any of that has been proven. And if it has, that evidence I don't think has been released publicly. But I agree with you about a lot of the inconsistencies and things that don't make sense that would lead people to believe that the intruder theory isn't plausible.
Joseph, I am so curious to hear your thoughts on the note. And let me ask you, wasn't that certain dollar amount something about a raise that the father, John, had just earned or received?
Yeah, so the ransom amount that was demanded in the ransom note was coincidentally the same amount of John Ramsey's bonus, $118,000. So that's very strange because how could an intruder have known what John Ramsey's bonus was? This wasn't like it is now, where you can Google documents and find that stuff out if you were truly stalking someone. This was in the mid 90s. So that information to me would probably be difficult to find for the average person.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Joseph. Okay, so we want to hear from you. So tell us what you're thinking. So thank you, Vashan, for speaking out, and we'd love to hear. Anyone want to add anything to this? Your thoughts, opinions? Okay, Coach Kelly.
Hi. We do have a question in the chat from Katie, and I think it's a question that a lot of us have had. But why wouldn't the police check the whole house? And she said the first place that she would go would be the basement.
Joseph, I can't wait to hear from you, but I'm just going to say, Kate, we're so similar. I was thinking the same thing when this first happened, and then how interesting it was it that the detective had to say, or the DA, I think it was, to say, go search it again. So directing John to go search it again, and then he opens a door, and he's also with his friend. Joseph, what do you think?
So yeah, from the beginning, this police investigation was botched, in my opinion. They were called to the house, and they didn't do a thorough search of the house. Um, in their defense, a little bit, the floor plan for this house was very, very strange. I watched a documentary where they gave like a 3D recreation of the house, and it's a very bizarre layout. So I can understand how someone who may not be paying attention could miss a room here or there. But to me, if you were being called to a home to investigate a missing child, you do a thorough search. So the fact that they missed the body the first time they went there, um, that to me just kind of throws the whole investigation into question. There were also some other things where they didn't, I don't think they separated family members before they interviewed them. There were friends and family members coming into the house. They didn't secure the crime scene. So there was a lot of potential contamination of evidence. So there were a lot of things like that right from the jump that were problems.
I mean, when I think back in the late 90s, I think I would have been smart enough to know to call the police right away, which, by the way, sounded like there was like 20 minutes. So they must have, when they did a search, was that the quick search that a mother would do when she finds that her daughter's not in bed and you run through the whole house, but maybe you don't hit that downstairs. But there was, Joseph, I'm correct, like over a 20, 25-minute timeline from the time that they saw the note, that Patsy saw the note. Can you just can you read
Yeah,
yeah.
I believe so. There was like about a 20-minute delay from the time she claimed she found the note to the time she called 911, which I mean, I guess I could understand. You're probably freaking out, running through the house. Now, it is her house, so she's familiar with the floor plan. So people would say, "How did you miss your daughter's body?" But I'm not a parent, so I can't put myself in a situation of what it would be like to read a ransom note like that. But I can imagine you probably could go into shock, panic. I think it's plausible that you could be so frazzled and flustered that you don't check everywhere and you do take that 20 minutes to kind of figure out what's going on before you call the police.
Awesome, Joseph. Coach Kelly.
So this is my own personal thing because I've been spending the day watching this show as well. To me, Joseph, you did bring up the fact that this house had a really crazy layout. So, you're upstairs on one end of the house and you could go downstairs on that same end, but then you have to cut across the house to go down to the basement. And it was just like absolutely ridiculous layout for a house. But I'm thinking, like, if I lose my keys, if I lose my phone, if I lose it, I am checking every single room in my house. If my child has been kidnapped, and I mean, maybe you're not thinking that the child is still in your house, but you best believe I'm going to be searching every single nook and cranny of that house looking for my child. So I don't necessarily know how, it was so hard, I'm going to say, to find her, especially if she was like, to me, the pictures that you see in the documentary, she's not hidden by any means. You open a door and there she was. So it was kind of crazy to me that it took them so long if that's where she was originally, if the parents weren't involved. There's a lot to this case. Like, it's, in some ways I don't know how the parents aren't involved in it, but then it's the whole DNA where you can't, there was no tie to anybody in the family with the DNA that was on those underwear. So before I do pass it off, I do want to say, I hope she's still here because I think she just moved. We do have somebody who works in this. What do I want to call it? Somebody who works in this field, who is a detective, and she does have her hand up. She does want to participate because she's got a lot of perspective that she can offer to this conversation. So I think she might have just popped out,
I
but
saw
as soon,
Annalise hand up.
yeah,
Thank you, Coach
perfect,
Kelly. And I wrote in
perfect.
the chat that she was going to be next. By the way, Coach Kelly, when you were talking, Katie with a star was giving you so many green check marks to, I guess, to say that she agrees with you. So thank you, Katie, for your participation. Appreciate that. Yeah, I like what you said, Coach Kelly, and how you're thinking. It's just so crazy. Can we talk about the ransom note? First of all, I couldn't like actually write a ransom note because nobody would read my handwriting, but it is absolutely crazy. How did it match the same as John Ramsey's bonus? Anyone want to kind of come up and tell us your opinion on that one? I want to hear it.
Yeah, you just took the words out of my mouth. What's going on, everybody? So I just read that. Not only was it to the dollar amount of the bonus that John Benet received, but the ransom note was written on a notepad that was owned by the mother. So there's even more suspicion. And I also read that 12 to 1, someone in the family was had something to do with this murder. I mean, I remember this case. We're of a certain age in this room, and I remember my parents talking about it. It was the family. Everybody was like, it had to be, and for them to not really be able to prove it was just bizarre, and it was scary. uh, someone got away with it. I don't know what the end result was. I don't know if you guys mentioned it. I've been kind of in and out, dealing with some stuff at home, but I don't know if anybody was ever got caught for that. But uh, definitely, I feel like it's the family and that little bit of information that the notepad belonged to the mother. So someone happened to write a ransom note on your notepad, and the dollar amount. So I'll land with that.
Thank you, Annalise. We saw you popped out. Your hand is up and we can't wait. Can you just tell us, Annalise, before you start, a little bit of your background, if you don't mind, so we have an idea of like, where you're coming from? And I know all of us are absolutely, our ears are open and we cannot wait to hear what you have to say. So take it away, Annalise.
Thanks, Adrian. I'm nursing a cold, so if you see me randomly go on mute, it's because I'm coughing up a lung. But I've been in law enforcement for almost 10 years now. Actually, this year will be 10 years. At the moment, I am one of the lead detectives for major crimes, organized crime in my area. So this case is one of like the most infamous cold cases ever. Like people are still talking about it. I know there is a documentary that just came out on Netflix. The two things I want to bring up, because we're kind of at this spot and I don't want to like jump ahead. Um, Never, ever in my 10 years experience have I seen a ransom note that is 2.5 pages long. It's just unheard of. How detailed it is, unheard of. Also, to find again, I think Divine mentioned the notepad and the pen was in the residence, and a draft copy of it. So they practice it one way or another. But 2.5 pages, absolutely unheard of for a ransom note. Ransom notes are normally quick, easy, straight to the point. This one, again, there is a copy of it online. You can see how detailed it is. So very, very odd. The other thing I wanted to just point out is when it was the mother who called 911, and I think three officers or two or three were there within a few minutes, searched the house. I do know that the layout of that home is very unique, but nonetheless, I mean, I am a mother, so if in my in my case, I'd be searching my house upside down, searching the cars, searching the garage, like every inch of that home. But for the officers, one of the officers did go down to the basement and notice that there was a door that was secured by a latch at the top of the door frame. So probably, too high up for Jonbenet to reach, but he never opened it. He never opened it. And he explained later that he was looking for an exit route used by the supposed kidnapper. And since that wooden latch was holding the door closed from inside the house, then he figured that clearly the kidnapper couldn't have used that door that was obviously closed as the possible exit. Now, Jean-Benet's body was found behind that door. So I'm going to just leave that there with y'all.
Annalise, first of all of us I'm going to say this, all of us on the stage want to thank you for your service and sacrifice. Thank you so much. I'm very impressed with you. Can we go back to that 2.5 page ransom note? And Joseph, please interrupt me when you have a question too. But why? Like what is you're writing it fast? I just want to hear a little bit more about the typical ransom note compared to this 2.5 page. Would you go a little deeper with us on that?
I
Can
don't
I make
even
a
think
quick
I've ever seen
suggestion?
one. Yeah,
Oh, I'm
absolutely.
sorry. Now, I wanted to make a suggestion. Can we hear that ransom note? I just read it. I think that will help people in the room to understand like the likeliness of what happened. So
Joseph, do you
can I?
have are you on a computer that you can pull that up and read it?
Yep,
With
that is a great idea, Vashon. I'm pulling
awesome.
it up right now. Just
Thank
give
you.
me like 30
Oh, so
seconds.
Annalise was saying something. Annalise, what were you saying? You've never seen, or I want to hear what you have to say.
Sure. I've never seen a ransom note that thorough, that long. It's maybe a few sentences at most. And it's written for the most part in a very sloppy, rushed manner, right? When you're writing a ransom note, it's just quick, easy, and go. So for it to be 2.5 pages, as well as a draft copy on the notepad with the pen that was in that residence, is just very, it definitely is very alarming. That's all I can say. Yeah.
So Joseph, just interrupt me when you're ready. So is it the sign of like the time back then that they didn't actually analyze it? What do you know? How, like, what were the analyzations that they had? Do they have handwriting analysis? I'm thinking that they would have, but why wasn't there enough information from that?
I believe that they did have a federal court ruling that said it was highly unlikely that Patsy was the one who wrote it, which was certified by handwriting experts. But that's all I know about that.
Interesting. Wow. Joseph, how are you? Are you ready to read?
Yes, I have it right in front of me. And
Awesome.
yeah, I want to note that it is very sloppy and messy and it feels like it seems like it's in a rushed manner. So bear with me as I read this. I may get a couple things wrong because it is so kind of sloppily written. Okay. Mr. Ramsey, listen carefully! Explanation point. We are a group of individuals that represent a small foreign faction. We respect your business, but not the country that it serves. At this time, we have your daughter in our possession. She is safe, and if you want her to see 1997, you must follow our instructions to the letter. You will withdraw $118,000 from your account. $100,000 will be in $100 bills and the remaining $18,000 in $20 bills. Make sure that you bring a good size attache to the bank. When you get home, you will put the money in a brown paper bag. I will call you between 8 and 10 a.m. tomorrow to instruct you on delivery. The delivery will be exhausting, so I advise you to be rested. If we monitor you getting the money early, we might call you early to arrange an earlier delivery of the money and indistinguishable, and hence earlier pickup of your daughter. And as it goes on, it gets progressively sloppier. So I apologize. Bear with me. Um, any deviation of my instruction will result in the immediate execution of your daughter. You will also be blank her remains for proper burial. The two gentlemen watching over your daughter do particularly like you, so I advise you to not provoke them. Speaking to anyone about your situation, such as the police, FBI, etc., will result in your daughter being beheaded. If we catch you talking to a stray dog, she dies. If you alert bank authorities, she dies. If the money is in any way marked or tampered with, she dies. You will be you will be scanned for electronic devices, and if any are found, she dies. You can try to deceive us, but be warned that we are familiar with law enforcement countermeasures and tactics. You stand a 99% chance of killing your daughter if you try to outsmart us. Follow our instructions, and you stand a 100% chance of getting her back. Um, Blank and your family are under constant scrutiny, as well as the authorities. Don't try to blank and blank. You are not the only indistinguishable. You are not the only blank around, so don't think that killing will be defiance. Don't underestimate us, John. Use that good Southern indistinguishable. Use that good Southern common sense of yours. It is up to you now, John. Victory! Explanation point. Signed SBTC.
Great job, Joseph. So wait, so I reading that Sina Wong in 2016 was on 2020, and she says it's highly probable that Patsy wrote it, citing similar letter A's, misplaced capitals, and phrases like and hence matching her 1997 Christmas letter. And also they had cited that the note's material tone, she is safe and unharmed, and the fact it was written on her pad scream that it was. Also, Post today still peg her as the author, suggesting a cover up and maybe the accident gone wrong. These are just opinions, and we are not stating any facts. But I would love to hear anyone who thinks. So wait, let's go back to Annalise for a second. Annalise, so how often do they get it wrong? These handwriting experts.
Sorry, what was your question, Adrian?
Oh, no, no worries. How often do handwriting analysis and experts get it wrong?
To my knowledge, not very often. When someone deliberately tries to throw you off by writing a ransom note, disguising as somebody else, there are still a lot of similarities. Um, Sometimes they try to throw you off, and it's too off that it sets off alarms as well. Um, a lot of forensic analysis also stated that the note didn't have any emotion to it. And a lot of the time when a writer is trying to threaten or scare someone, they will emphasize certain words. And this kind of almost seemed like, in a sense, oddly enough, almost like a business proposal, kind of. So that's really strange. Um, I know I mentioned earlier that the federal judge ruled that it wasn't her handwriting based on some handwriting specialists, but there's others that say otherwise as well. So,
So, Annalise, another question, if you don't mind.
sure.
Do they actually, I really appreciate you, do they actually look at the words, or are they just matching like letters to letters? Did they, or, because it's so interesting that some of the wording would match the Christmas letter. So I'm curious if that's, if they actually just are just looking at letters and seeing if it matches, or do they also take the wording into effect?
Wording into effect as well, just like how we speak a certain way, we all speak a certain way um, and say certain things. Same goes with when we're writing as well. So not only is it how you cross your T's or dot your I's, but it's the same that goes for just how you structure your sentences and the flow of them for sure.
Thank you, Annalise. Appreciate it. So, Joseph, the Ramseys swear it was an outsider, right? That the small foreign faction per the note. So that intruder theory, actually, in 1998, points to the open basement window, the suitcase, and an unknown male DNA on the Jean Bonnet's underwear and nails. There was, do you remember, Joseph? Wait, do you remember Gary Olivia, the pedophile who confessed repeatedly? Letters were analyzed in 2023 by the U.S. Sun. That scored a 17.5 match. Like, oh my God, I want to hear your thoughts on that. What do you think? What do you think, Joseph?
So yeah, I was just going to bring that up. There was an individual who confessed to killing John Bonet. He detailed a ton of different things that he claims he did. He claims that he did enter the home. I think he said he entered the home at 5 p.m., stayed in the home, and waited until the parents went to bed. Um, Very, very bizarre. But honestly, the dude is really, really strange, really weird. His behavior, his mannerisms. I mean, just watching him in the documentary, I was like, you know what? I mean, it tracks. This definitely looks like a crazy person who would write a crazy letter like this and could be responsible.
So first, I just want to say to everyone, welcome to Debate the News, True Crime Edition. Tonight, we're talking about Jonbenet Ramsey. If you're listening on the podcast, you may be thinking, who are all these people? Well, we are live on Chatter Social. It's got little bubbles to it, so you could go to your Android, go to your Apple, download the app, and we will get an invitation for you. So, Joseph, what about the footprint that was found in the basement that didn't match family members? Did they have that on the show last night or the documentary?
Yeah, I believe they mention it. Honestly, it's like a 3 hour documentary, so there's a lot of aspects and twists and turns to this case. So offhand, I don't actually remember about that footprint. Um, yeah, but I think that they didn't match it to family members, if I remember correctly. That footprint found in the basement.
Joseph is so great. It's so great to have Joseph because he's got a great memory and he knows that you are 100% right. Ding, ding, ding. In a sad way, it did not match family members. And what about the? Well, and please, if you would like to speak, raise your hand. We're keeping an eye on the stage. Annalise, you have your hand still raised, but I'm thinking when you want to cut in, you just cut in. You have special credit with us here at Debate the News, True Crime Edition. So, what about the force, the lack of the force entry evidence? Who want to talk about that? Joseph, and then maybe someone else. Tell us. This is crazy. So, there's no force entry, and the intruder maybe spent 22 minutes writing the note, and also the killing of this beautiful little girl. Who would like to contribute? Joseph, you start, and then we'll get some others to speak.
Yeah, so there definitely were people who were questioning the intruder theory, um, saying that there's no way. I think Annalise touched on some of those aspects. Does anyone else want to weigh in on that intruder theory and bring up any points about it?
I'll jump in here. It's Kelly. That's something that's, it's, I don't necessarily believe that there is an intruder simply because of just what I outlined or just what I mentioned earlier. That house is just so crazy. And, they said to go up to the second floor, which was where her bedroom was, like for them to get from the basement where that window was open and it was cracked across the house, up the stairs, across where the kitchen was or whatever it was, up to the second floor on the other side. Like that's so much kind of bumbling around, I think, that you would be doing in the dark. And you'd have to know, like, if you don't live in that house, you would have to know where to go to be able to find your way from one end of the house to the other end of the house. So, from that perspective, it just seems highly unlikely that it's an intruder. Like somebody would have to be, if it wasn't somebody in the house, it would have to be somebody who's very familiar with that house. Because again, as Annalise said, it is a very extremely unique layout, and it just doesn't make sense that somebody would be able to find their way through And another, I was just watching this before, and there was an investigator that was looking at the case who they decided, like, they tried to make him look crazy at some point, and he thinks that there was a taser involved. And, like, I don't know, there's just a whole lot, I think. It just doesn't seem likely that somebody, I think, outside of the house would go do all that stuff, bring everything that they brought, bring her downstairs, hurt her the way that they did, and nobody would notice it. Nobody would hear anything. There would be no bumbling. Like, it just doesn't make any sense to me.
I think
Yeah,
Jay. Oh, go
oh,
ahead.
go ahead. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there were some um, points that were brought up in the documentary that seem to lend themselves to the credibility of the intruder theory. There's also a lot of points that say the intruder theory doesn't make a lot of sense. But I believe one of the neighbors of the Ramseys, after the pedophile, I don't recall his name, confessed to these murders, I think the father of Jonbenet showed a picture of that individual to a neighbor, and that neighbor said that he recognized the man and that that man had been in their garage a year prior, and that he was very strange. So that's one witness allegation. Um, but yeah, that would lend itself to the intruder theory. Also, the pedophile had claimed that he entered the home, I guess, when they were at the Christmas party. They were at a Christmas party. They didn't return home until 9:30 p.m. So if that did happen and that guy is telling the truth, having that many hours inside of the house, by that point, yeah, if no one was home and he was walking through the house, I think that is enough time for him to be able to familiarize himself enough with the floor plan to avoid detection when the family came home and then to commit the crime. But there's a lot of points on both sides of this perspective that make a lot of sense too.
So Joseph, in the documentary, did they discuss about like there was a suspect, the housekeeper, Linda Hoffman Pugh? She knew the house. Did her name come up in the documentary?
Adrian, it may have offhand, it doesn't ring a bell, but it's possible that it did.
Interesting. Okay. And was there anything to do with a reporter, Chris Wolf? Was there any conversation about him? If you remember, I know I you're the one that watched the 3 hours, so I love you for that. I've seen a few of them, but I don't recall. So, anyone else have any thoughts regarding? Because we actually can move on if anyone, if we're good, because I would like to talk, and I want to, throw this to Joseph. But Joseph, how did the family's wealth, their social status, influence the investigation and the media coverage? I really would like to examine that. So Joseph's going to answer this, and then we would love to hear from the audience. So thank you.
Yeah, so the Ramsey family, and I actually didn't know this until recently, revisiting this case, they were very, very, very wealthy. They lived in a very affluent, very wealthy neighborhood. And I think that it was stated that this police department was really unexperienced with these types of crimes, which could explain maybe why they made so many mistakes. Um, so I think the fact that it was in a wealthy area, it's a wealthy family where homicides don't typically happen, that could have factored into a lot of things in this case. At the same time, a trained police force should be prepared to respond to something like this should it occur, regardless of whether it happens frequently or not.
So, okay, so I have this question to ask you now. So, when they had a lot of money, did that mean were they thinking, oh, we could hire our own private investigators? We'll hire our own lawyers. We're going to hire our own PR specialists, which is really what they did because they had the money to do that. What would have that, what did that look like for this case? Because we learned very early on that that happened right away, that they hired their own, again, I'll just repeat it. So, private investigators, they hired their own lawyers and they hired their own PR specialists. Do you want to speak of that, Joseph, and then we'll open it?
Yeah, absolutely. So that definitely affected the case because most families don't have the resources to hire a top, lawyer, PR firm, investigator, most families don't have those resources. And that type of stuff didn't play well with the public. The public perceived a lot of the interviews they gave and the television appearances to come off as staged. Um, to put it in perspective, though, this was in the mid 90s. So if you wanted to get your message out there, you really needed to go to a TV reporter or a newspaper reporter. You couldn't go on Twitter or Facebook, or I guess now it would be TikTok. You really had to hold a press conference with a PR team and have them contact the press so you could say exactly what you'd like to say and get it out there, or trust a newspaper reporter or a radio reporter and hope that they don't spin what you say in a negative way or out of context. So I think those are all factors.
Okay, so for Chatter Social audience that is here live, and if you don't have the Chatter app, download it on the Play Store for Apple and for Android. What I want you to do now is I want the audience to answer. Do you think that money also plays a role in being able to delay the police interviews and have to sit down for questioning? Who wants to answer that one? Joseph, what do you think?
Yeah, I think absolutely. I think absolutely. When you have more resources, you definitely have more options. Kelly, I see your hand is up.
Yeah, so it's not about this question that Adrian is asking, but we do have some other things in the chat. Trish is asking or mentioned there was a review of John Bonet's autopsy, and it led the team behind the documentary to speculate on what happened in her final moments. And what it said was there were fragmented pieces of yellow to light green, tan vegetable or fruit material, which may represent fragments of pineapple, which were found in her stomach. And then it continues to say a dish of pineapple in the Ramsey home had Patsy's and Burke's fingerprints on the bowl and spoon. So the documentary team concluded John Bonet had eaten a piece of her brother's pineapple. They posited that Burke subsequently struck his sister with a flashlight discovered in the house. So Trish was asking, with all of that, have we talked about the 9-year-old brother, about Burke, who was at home in his bedroom that night? And then also we have Donna in the chat asking, what about the 911 call?
So I do recall what Trish is talking about in the sense that I remember stories following that type of a narrative being reported. Honestly, I don't know how substantial the claims made in that narrative are. I do know that the brother did sue, I believe it was CBS, for $750 million when they aired a special suggesting that that he was involved, and it settled out of court. So, if I'm being honest, I don't know enough about the details of that narrative with the pineapple and with the brother to really speak intelligently on it.
So interesting. So this is just actually my opinion and some things that I'm reading. So nobody come after me. But so the notes was loaded with some like flair to it. Don't try to grow a brain, John. That was Dirty Harry. The delivery will be exhausting. That actually could be a reference from the movie Speed. Victory! Exclamation mark! SBIC SBTC. There's a movie Ransom, and they do know that Burke was a movie buff. And neighbors said he loved the action flicks. So, that was something that was looking at. Could a 9-year-old mimic that? And then again, we go back if we're going to talk about Burke. And thank you for bringing this up, Trish. We were waiting for you to bring that up. Actually, we knew someone would, and we wanted to come from the audience. The yeah, the bonus again. I mean, that would be something that you would speak about, right? Hey, Patsy, so excited! We got $118,000. That may be something. He may have also heard the terminology "small foreign faction." I don't think the schools teach small foreign faction. It may have even been part of a child spy game. I'm not even sure. And then just to talk, there was. And remember, he's a young boy. This is just some opinion. But in the 1997 interview that was released in 2016, it did show him detached. He kind of felt that his sister went to heaven. So there were people that were posting that said it felt creepy. And so it's something to consider. Who else would like to chime in? And then if we do, Joseph, if you feel like maybe we've talked about this a lot regarding this, I think also that we should really, because we don't have a long time, so thank you for being here. Debate the News, True Crime Edition. Tonight we're talking about Jonbenet Ramsey. This is our third episode. Please go back and watch our first episode, which was about Casey Anthony. We did a deep dive. And our second episode, which was Joseph Astro Castro. What was his? I know I got the name. Ariel Castro, right?
Correct.
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
Ariel Castro kidnappings. And yeah, and just quickly on Burke, really quick. I mean, of course, when a tragedy like this happens in the home and they don't have a clear suspect of an outside intruder, of course they're going to look at all the family members. So I think it's natural that people have theories like that. He, to this day, maintains his innocence. He says he has nothing to do with it. He spoke in the Netflix documentary as an adult now, like a full grown adult, and says it's preposterous. He never had anything to do with it. So that's all I really have on that.
So here's an interesting question. What are the ethical considerations when we're discussing these kind of theories that could implicate family members or talking like this that would have not been charged? Like, what does that look like? What is the responsibility of the media, which now would be considered true crimes edition, and also any other commentators when they're talking about involving children? I would love to hear your thoughts on that, Joseph.
I mean, yeah, this is a tricky one, especially with now in 2025. Look at us, we're on a social media platform talking about a true crime case from over 30 years ago. Um, yeah, it's difficult, I think, to balance the need for the media to entertain and captivate audiences while still being objective and ethical. And I think that the the source of the information, whether it be a TV station or a newspaper or a podcast or a TikToker, I think each of those sources is going to have a varying degree of how responsible and ethical they are with reporting.
Joseph, did the documentary talk about the disagreement between the police investigators and the district attorney's office? Did it show anything or reveal anything about our justice system?
Yeah, so the district attorney declined to prosecute the Ramseys, I believe. There was a grand jury that it was revealed in later years that they did indict them, but the DA um, didn't think there was enough evidence to actually prosecute them and declined to prosecute them. There was a disconnect. I think that the investigators, or some of the investigators, very much wanted the case to go forward. And some of the people, I believe, that were involved in the investigation later wrote books or did television appearances. I could be wrong about exactly what role that was, but someone involved in investigating was very vocal publicly on TV shows, and I believe wrote a book about it, and was later sued by the Ramsey family, I believe, over the book he wrote, and they settled um, out of court.
Thank you. Annalise, can you chime in on this? Would you mind? If you are there, because I know. Anyone else want to chime in until we wait for Annalise maybe to come back? regarding how politics and public pressure may influence prosecution decisions?
Actually, I ran across a video where a young man came forward to issue an anonymous tip. And he said that he was very surprised that when the detective called him back, he stated that I got your number from John Ramsey's lawyer, which caused him to be extremely terrified because said he left a message on his voicemail. Why would you then get that message from his lawyer? So I think that there are some people that may come forward or attempted to come forward, but I think it's also interesting that we decided to do the documentary after Patty's demise. I didn't understand why it took so long to share this story with us. And I'm not sure if you heard Kelly earlier, but I did want to, if you guys haven't already, dissect the phone call because there were some very interesting telltale signs in that particular phone call. A lot of dissociative behavior patterns. She initially called and said, I'm the mother, um, not her mother. She also said, I found a note. There is a ransom note. A lot of paraphrase. She never said that they left a note behind. So it was a lot of little things that was caught in that particular phone call. And in the very beginning of the call, she was about to say, we need an ambulance. And then she stopped herself and said, police. We need a police. So I don't know. It's a lot of chilling discoveries in that 911 call. I'm not sure if you guys have discussed it or would like to.
First of all, Donna, thank you. It's great to have you here. No, we have not discussed it. And please, can you dissect it? We are all ears. I can't wait to hear. So take it away.
Yeah, so basically when she called, there was a lot of awkward pauses. Um, she said it was just weird. I would love to hear you guys play it. I'll also send it in the back chat, but it was hi, help, we need an, and she stopped herself at almost saying an ambulance as if someone was hurt or needed assistance. So she stopped with that narrative and then she said, she took a deep gasp and she said, police. And then as the phone call went further, they left a note. No, I don't think she said they left a note. There's a note. There's a ransom note. I found she said, I got the note. And she never said they left a note behind. They took my daughter and they left a note behind. It was just very staged, as if she was acting and dissociated from her role as a mother, the actual crime of what actually happened. So she distanced herself a lot from that particular from the actuality or reality of what was actually happening. So some people said it was just bad acting.
So, Donna, while you're talking, if you would like to see, I do have the video up that I could play, and you will need to drop down. If you are listening live in the Chatter Social app, drop down and we'll bring you back up so you can hear the call, or just listen to the call because I don't think there's that much to hear. So, hold on. I've got the bot in the room. And if you're listening to this on a podcast, you could be listening to this in real life right here on Chatter Social. Hold tight for a second.
It's so easy to use that I won them over right away. Onboarding was seamless, and now every little detail.
To those of you who may want to ask, let me address very directly, I did not kill my daughter, Jonbenet.
Hold on, let me just get to the part so we're not listening to an hour and 35 minutes. We don't want to take up that much of your time. Hold tight.
Okay. And when we're done with this,
Jonbenet.
and when
The
we're done with this,
911
guys, we only
the
have about
911
20
call
minutes.
in the Jonbenet Ramsey case today.
All right, Joseph, would you we could put that in the chat if you'd like, or you could Google that if you feel, yeah, you know what, Donna,
No, if
thank
you
you. Oh, you
if
want to
you
play
haven't
it?
queued up, let's go. I was just going to say while
Okay.
you were getting it ready, we only have about
And I'm
20
going to look
minutes
at
left in
it
the show.
through, or we're going
So
to
after we're
examine it through a
Okay. So after we're done with this call, we want you guys to jump
You
in.
are listening to the Roberta Glass True Crime Report, putting the true back in true crime. From New York City.
Okay,
Okay,
guys.
looks like this is it. Yes, I think I've
Okay.
got it right here.
Go ahead.
Sorry about that.
It's okay.
Report 911 emergency. Police. What's going on? 515th Street. What's going on there, ma'am? We have a kidnapping. Hi, police. Explain to me what's going on, okay? There's a note left and our daughter's gone. A note was left and your daughter is gone? How old is your daughter? 6 years old. She's gone. 6 years old. How long ago was this? I don't know. I just found the note. And my daughter's dead. Does it say who took her? What? Does it say who took her? I don't know. There's a ransom note here. It's a ransom note? It says FBTC. Victory. Please. Okay, what's your name? Are you Kathy Ramsey? I'm the mother. Oh my God. Please. I'm sending an officer over, okay? Please. Do you know how long she's been gone? No, I don't. Please, we just got out and she right here. Oh my God, please. Okay, well, somebody. I am, honey. Please. Take a deep breath. Please, okay? Hurry. Kathy.
Oh, okay.
Sorry
All
about
right.
that.
It's okay.
Interesting. Let me just close out of this for a second. Okay, very interesting. So Donna, because this was also enhanced to try to hear more, so it may have been in the beginning, when this happened that like things were heard. What do you think about the 911 call, Donna? And can you add more to it? Not more, add more to it, but add your thoughts to it.
It's just again, it's eerie to hear her use certain words. Why are you describing the note in the signature? I don't know. Don't most ransom notes say don't call the police? So I assume that someone of their caliber would have some discretion. Like I want to speak to the captain. I don't know. It's just chilling. It's just chilling. I'm kind of lost for word after hearing it. I heard a different version where someone actually put it through a computer to hear every sound, and I'll drop it in the chat here there later. But it's just a choice of word that she had to hit those points. There's a note. There's a note. Isn't the child more important than the note? I don't know. You guys may have some pushback, but I don't think that those would have been my choice word or the highlight of the conversation. It's like she just had to hit those bullet points for me.
Yeah, thank you, Donna. I don't know if I would say my daughter's hair color, but Momo, I see your hand raised. Love to hear from you.
Hey, Adrian. Hey, Donna. Thanks so much for bringing this in. This is actually my first time hearing the 911 call. I'm a mother myself, and I did feel a frantic energy. I know when my child is lost for even 1 to 2 minutes, if you're like looking in the store and your child is not right next to you, that immediately, it's not like you know what there, you have a loss for words. There's a sense of urgency in the sense, well, where is my daughter? Oh, she's not here. She wants the ambulance, the people on the other line to know my daughter's not here. I need to find her, is what I heard in the call personally. I don't think there was anything super sus. I think I would have mentioned the note. In mentioning the note, I think the note itself is super sus and really crazy for being 3 pages long, written in the mom's notebook and having that much detail in it. That is really sus to me because I'm just like thinking to myself, The person who perpetrated this crime, obviously, we all know that she was found in the basement, and what her fate was when the father, who was the one that found her in that basement. And I just can't imagine that. That's why I'm almost thinking it's family friend who felt comfortable enough being in the space that they knew that nothing was going to happen to them in the basement as they were writing this note. So, but about the call, I think as a mother, I would have felt exactly the same way. And I think my sense of urgency would be like, help, 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 and not really knowing what would be the proper words to say. But chilling is definitely right, Donna.
Momo, thank you for speaking up. I really appreciate that. Actually, I would love to hear from some of the other mothers in the room regarding the 911 calls. We know it's just your opinion, but let's have you on mic and share.
So this is Nurse Share. For me personally, it was surprising that she didn't say her daughter's name. Like, and again, I don't know what it's like to have a child missing, but I feel like that's the first thing I'm saying when I call. Maybe I'm not even saying my son. I'm saying Gabriel's missing. My son is gone. Like, I'm saying his name. I'm saying his age. Like, I'm describing things because I'm frantic, and everyone knows when you call the police, you tell them, what the child looks like. Unless you don't think they're going to be found, then maybe you're not describing those things. So I don't know.
Oh, Nurse Share, such a great point. Any other mamas in the room that would like to speak up?
This is Kelly. So mom of two here. And I think what I'm hearing when I listen to, I guess, the other opinions in the room about how the mother was reacting, and the words that she was saying, the only thing I could think of is, how do any of us really know what we would say, how we would say it, what words we would use, all of that stuff if we've literally never been in this situation, right? So I think it's really hard to say or to judge her, necessarily for what she said, how she said it in the moment, because, like we've never been there. And I think a lot of our, I want to say, opinions or our thoughts are coming from, maybe what we've seen in movies or we've seen on TV. Like, this is the way that we should respond, or I think that I would respond. But when it comes down to it, nobody knows what they would do, what they would say, unless they were in that situation in that moment. Now, again, with that said, I don't know how much I believe her, and not necessarily because of the call, because of some of the other things, the other signs, right? Yeah, just she just isn't necessarily believable. I think the fact that, yes, there is the note with her, like it's in her notebook. um I don't know, there's just other things that lead me to believe that she could be guilty. I just don't know about that phone call in particular, if I would like pin her for this case literally just because of the 911 call.
Thank you, Kelly. I totally agree with you. Hey, I want to ask you, Joseph, well, how was this brought up in the documentary?
So that is a good question, Adrian. Honestly, there are so many points of the documentary. I don't specifically remember how it was brought up in the documentary.
Oh, not a worry, not a worry. We could always go deep dive. So, just to remind everyone, we are Debate the News, True Crime Edition. This is a podcast, but we are live on Chatter Social. That's why you hear all the fantastic voices, and we're going to grow. This is our third episode. First one was Casey Anthony. The second one was the Castro Cleveland murder story. And today we're doing Jonbenet. So, we'd love for you to go back, please review, share. We want everyone to know about this because this is the only true crime podcast and live together. So get on Chatter and join us. So, Joseph, appreciate everything you're doing and taking the time to do your own deep dive into that. Want to talk about some of the lessons that can be learned from this. This was a idea and a suggestion from Cindy Stumpo, amazing woman, and we wanted to actually offer these lessons that we all can learn. So if anyone has anything that they want to add or anything on the lessons, please raise your hand. I'll keep an eye on it. But for right now, Joseph is going to share some of these lessons that we can learn. Take it away, Joseph.
Yeah, so some of the lessons we can learn from this is the importance of proper investigation procedures. I know Annalise brought that up. and some of the other listeners brought that up as well. Every crime scene needs to be properly secured with the evidence preserved, regardless of who the victims or the potential suspects are. Um, Another lesson is media responsibility in cases involving children. The sensationalized coverage of crimes involving children can have devastating consequences for families and investigations.
So, Joseph, hold on. Let's take it one at a time for a second. We have a
Okay.
little time. So, so the importance of the proper investigation procedure that you spoke about. I mean, I get that that would be, and Annalise, if you're here and you can talk about this, I get that this is something that the police are discussing and using. But how do we get the average Joe? Sorry, Joseph, but the average Joe to actually know how we should be acting when this takes place? Should we, the consumer, actually get more PSAs, have more discussion about that? What would that look like? Would love Annalise, and if you can, chime in so that we could I want to just go a little bit deeper in that in about 2 minutes, if you don't mind. Or your thoughts, Joseph. What do you think? Do you think that this is something, how do we share this information?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I think that I don't know, honestly. It's just as a person, as a civilian, I don't know what I would think to do if I was in a crime scene. I guess you would think you don't want to disturb the crime scene, you want to preserve it, but I wouldn't even really know what to think about. I see Leah's hand is up.
Yes, let's hear from Leah.
Okay, so this is a little different. It was more to Joseph's second point. So if you want me to wait, I can.
No. Talk about the media responsibility in cases involving children. Go for it.
Well, so I'm going back to the parents. So my kids grew up on a military base. I was a military spouse, and so there would always be like festivals and things like that. Almost at every festival that we went to, they would always have a booth where you could take pictures of your kids, like current picture, from the front and all these things. It sounds really gruesome, I know, but and they would even do fingerprints and they would do different things for you to keep as a parent so that if anything ever happened, you would have current pictures and things like that that you could share with police if you needed to. I know it sounds really creepy, but that's really important, right? Have you ever seen like a missing kid where they're using some goofy picture from Facebook or something like that, or I guess Instagram? So definitely like keep up with that as your kids grow, especially when they're tinier. They change their look so often. So as a parent, definitely do that. Keep that tucked away somewhere where it's, really easy, if you would ever need it, God forbid. And then the other thing I wanted to say about the 911 call, if that's okay. So one night we were having a picnic, or not a picnic, like a barbecue, and the kids were playing hide and seek. My daughter crawled behind a bush and she was hiding. That was her hiding space. She was probably, I don't know, 15 feet from us. She fell asleep. And so whenever we said her name, she didn't hear. She was about 6 years old at the time. We thought she was missing. Like we were literally like running around trying to find her, acting like crazy people, called the police. What woke her up is the police coming with the sirens and everything. That is what woke her up, and she was that close to us. And I can tell you, when you make that phone call, or like when you're feeling that, you're running around like a nut. I'm in no way defending um the mother or anything like that. I'm just saying it's so crazy, like such a crazy time. And that's why it's important to like save the photos and do all those things. So, anyway, great show again tonight. Loved it. You guys are doing amazing. Can't wait for the next one.
Leah, thank you so much. I'm so glad you spoke up. I do remember that. And I remember when my children were small, I loved it. And it was usually the police department that would pay for the booth, or they would get the booth for free. And they would have either the fingerprinting, or they would take the information, they would put it on a hard drive back then. So, question is, before Joseph continues with the lessons we can learn, any of your new mamas now that maybe go to those kids' expos, are they continuing to do that? and I'd love to hear a yes or a no. If you're a new mom and no, Kelly says no with an X on her profile photo. Interesting. Nurse Share, have you seen that? Annalise, please.
Sorry, I was away from my phone. As a mom and also a new mom to, well, I guess not a new mom to be, they don't do that anymore. They should. I'm also at a point, especially with everything I've seen in my line of work, like I might put an air tag on my kids. I can't even lie to y'all. Like seriously. But to answer your question from earlier, um, and I only heard a part of it because I'm in the middle of being a mom. Um, as far as what I would tell civilians when are in the middle of a crime scene, so there's like seven. We call them seven S's of crime scene investigation. So the first is obviously secure the scene, right? So make sure everyone's safe, including ourselves, the victims, witnesses, which establishes the boundaries to prevent contamination of the crime scene. So that's number one, secure. Then separate. So we always separate witnesses at the crime scene to prevent them from influencing each other so that we can ensure that we're always getting the most accurate information that we're gathering. So secure, separate, and then scan is the third, where we will conduct an overview of the scene to, identify, evidence, potential evidence or areas that are of interest. So that was number three, right? Yeah, secure, separate, scan, see. So we'll do, photographs, including close up and wide shots to get the full scope of it. That's number four. And then sketch. So we will have someone come in and sketch the scene, noting location of evidence and other key features of the crime scene. Then we do the thorough search of the crime scene to locate, identify any other potential evidence. And then, of course, last but not least, secure and collect. So secure, separate, scan, see, sketch. I think I got this in order. Search and then secure and collect. So in this case in particular, when the 911 call was made and there were two or three officers that were at the scene within a few minutes, and then they had family and friends come over for one of the officers to tell Jonbenet's father, and I think was it a family member or a friend as well, to go off themselves and start scanning the home is extremely, extremely irresponsible. If anything, nobody should have been in the home and they should have been all separated. So, if any of you guys, and heaven forbid, God forbid, um, find yourself in a situation like that, it is best to, as Kelly said, don't touch anything, and just follow the instructions of the officer to make sure that you're safe, everyone else is safe, and the crime scene is not tampered with.
Annalise, you have given us so much knowledge and so much of your time. And I know I'm speaking for everyone again, but we are all so appreciative of you. We want you back. This is every Tuesday and Thursday night. We're going to start at 7:30. So get your kids in bed early. We really enjoy it. And then join us over the weekend. Stay tuned for the dates. We're looking at probably Friday and Saturday night starting at 7:32, where we'll do some deep dives. Amazing. Oh, I can't get over it. Okay, so Joseph, continue with these lessons that we can learn because I think we all need to hear them.
Yeah, and before we do that, we have a lot more time. We were going to close out, but we have an extra like 20 or 30 minutes to go. So I'm just going to see if, Adrian, if you wanted to open it up to the audience to just speak about any aspects of this case, your opinions. We got through so much information, but I don't know if we gave everyone a chance to weigh in. So does anyone have anything they want to say?
I
So
want to say,
I'll
oh, wait, hold on for 1 second, Nurse. I want to say just one thing. I'll be very quick. I really would like to see more of that police officers doing what Leah said, going out. So maybe on this weekend, we can do a little deep dive on how maybe together we can kind of help or maybe help certain neighborhoods that may have more children missing. But Nurse Share, please take it away.
Yep. So I was just going to share like a conspiracy theory that I had on this, because she was sexually assaulted, and I know that there was a black blanket found in the home that had either her dad's semen or perhaps her stepbrother or brother's semen on it. I'm going to assume the older stepbrother, since the other one was only 9 at that time. Um, I was surprised that there wasn't like a whole lot of talk about that. And it just made me wonder, like, was there some kind of like child porn ring or something? Like, were they involved in something nefarious and had their daughter in something nefarious, and maybe just something happened that they didn't think um, was going to happen? There were other people that were close to the case. And there's a ton of conspiracy theories out about this, but there were other people that were not close to the family, but I guess within like proximity to the family. And there was even one person who was a sex offender and a homeless drifter. His name was Gary Howard Oliver, and he actually was suspected at some point, but I guess ruled out. I'm not sure when, where, or how, but he may have lived blocks away from them at the time of the murder, and he did have a history of sexually abusing children. In 2000, he was arrested on a drug charge, and the police had actually found a photo of Jonbenet and a stun gun in his backpack. And he later told the Denver Post that her murder had touched him very deeply, and he had built a shrine to remember her. So, absolutely nuts. And then later on in 2002, there was like a CBS 48-hour investigate special that was on, and the show alleged that Oliver had told a friend that he was in Boulder around that time and had done something horrible to a child. And he had also written a poem back in that time, which he called an ode to Jonbenet. And then he was arrested again in 2016 on child porn charges. So in, I think it was January 2019, there were additional reports that broke, and the investigators had reviewed a series of letters that Oliver wrote to a friend and a former high school classmate, Michael Vale, acknowledging that he had murdered Jonbenet and claiming to have done it accidentally. And I'll just read like an excerpt from the poem that is online here. It says, "I never loved anyone like I did Jonbenet, and yet I let her slip and her head bashed in half, and I watched her die." So he wrote that in one of his letters. Obviously, it was an accident. Please believe me, she was not like the other kids. So the person he sent that to turned those letters into the authorities, saying that he wanted his former classmate to be convicted, and sent the letters to the police, hoping that it would be damning enough evidence against him for them to do something. And at the time of this article, it says that it was still under investigation, but I can't find anything else about this anywhere else online.
Yeah, so I do know that Gary Howard Oliva, his name was definitely thrown around. And that's an interesting conspiracy theory. I hadn't actually heard that that full theory presented, but there has been quite a bit of speculation about potential things that could have happened, because again, this is still an unsolved mystery. So there's no one that's been held accountable for this murder. So there is a lot of speculation. In regards to John Mark Carr, who was the individual who did confess to murdering Jonbenet, although there's speculation that that may not be true. He was arrested on child pornography charges. So John Mark Carr was definitely a pedophile.
Yeah, it's just surprising to me that there's so many people that were in that industry that were around them or in the vicinity of them. And maybe it started off innocent. Maybe they were going to make some fetish content with her, and they told her, "Oh, she won't have to take her clothes off," or like, and then just something went wrong and they left her around the wrong person for too long. And then they just had to come up with a story, because the real story they wouldn't have been able to justify that to police. They would have been a part of creating child porn, even if, nothing nefarious was going to be happening in those videos. If it was just going to be like her parading around or something in her pageant costumes. But yeah, I think the parents know more than they let on. And I think that, it's just sad.
Yeah, and there definitely was a big conversation around what is it ethical, is it okay, is it normal to be taking a child that young, dressing them up as if they're an adult, and parading them around in these beauty pageants. Yeah, there was definitely a big conversation about that surrounding this case for sure.
Whoa, Nurse Share. Wow, 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 wow. Wow. Okay, wow. Anyone else want to add or have anything to say regarding that? I love that you brought that into this conversation because it's got me thinking, how am I going to sleep tonight, Nurse Share? I'm going to need a sleeping pill. My gosh. Anyone else have anything to add?
Well, there was someone analyzing her mannerism. It wasn't just that she was young and in pageants. It was her mannerism and how she moved, how she swayed, as if she was. I don't think you can coach a child into certain movement and certain styles of dance. I don't think they can even practice that. Those are normally signs of a child that's been introduced to the adult world well before their time. And I hope I'm wrong about this, but there was definitely speculation that something was going on. And I don't know if this was a bit of fury, jealousy. It's the whole thing is just heartbreaking. And I hope they really get justice. I hate that this case still has so many answers after all these years.
It's crazy, right, Donna? Thank you, Donna. It's crazy to think someone got away with murder. Right, Joseph?
Yeah, as of right now, no one has been convicted or even charged. I think formally and prosecuted for this murder. So it is, yeah, a tragedy all the way around.
All right. If nobody has anything to add, let's talk about some of these lessons because I think it is important, and we have a little time, so we could dig a little deep if need to on any of these the lessons that you still have left.
Yeah, so just quickly, critically thinking about evidence. Even seemingly contradictory evidence needs to be evaluated objectively without confirmation bias.
So, Annalise, could you are you there? Are you able to speak? Nurse Share, do you want to answer that one or kind of give some thought to that? The critical thinking about evidence.
Yeah, I think that there wasn't a lot of critical thinking applied here. I don't feel like the case had emphasized a lot about the molestation that was going on. I feel like if they had gone down that avenue, they probably would have been able to come up with a more realistic storyline around what happened. Like, regardless of whether or not that was the cause of death, just the fact that that was a factor here that should have been addressed and looked at more, because that, you know, gives some credence to motives that could have been drawing or driving certain people's actions. Um, Motives for why the parents were behaving the way that they were, and then even with the family and friends coming over, like, for all you know, the family and friends knew that they were going to be doing fetish videos or something like that, something that maybe they thought was appropriate but also was a way to monetize, what they already had going with the pageants and stuff, and things just went wrong. So I just feel like it was totally mishandled, whether they were inexperienced in that area or not. And as big as this case was, I'm surprised that there wasn't like some federal intervention sooner as well. Like, I feel like it was really botched from the beginning.
Yeah, I
Just
totally agree, nurse. I totally agree. I feel like this case was paid for. They had the best lawyers money can buy. And I don't think we'll ever get the real answers because they've been covered and compromised. But I'm wondering if there was two separate 911 calls because when I researched the 911 call, I'm getting different responses. Also, someone said that she hung up in the middle of a 911 call. Did anybody hear anything to that fact? Because in the middle of one call, they're saying that the father was in the background saying, "Arrest me." So I don't know if people are going too far with trying to dissect the phone calls, but they did say one call ended in the middle. So I'm wondering if there was a second call where the father was in the background, or she hung up to prevent the background noise. Is the allegation here?
Interesting points. Anyone else? Thank you so much. I think that was Donna, right? Thank you, Donna, for speaking up. Really appreciate all of you that have contributed to the show. We know as we keep continuing our show that you will speak up even more. So, anyone else have anything? You could raise your
Yeah,
hand or on mic.
just in response to what Donna was saying, I had not heard that rendition of the 911 call, but that would make sense. Like if the parents knew something was going on and things had went left, they would feel some culpability, some guilt there. And he could have been sitting on the steps with his head in his hand crying, saying, arrest me, like, and that's why she hung up. Like you just don't know. But I think they know what happened. I absolutely believe that those parents knew what happened. Whether there was something, even if, maybe the theory about the brother hitting her with the flashlight was true and that was an accident, but maybe the molestation stuff was something that took place earlier, in the day or whatever, that was unrelated to the murder specifically. But it was just a lot wrong and a lot going wrong in this household that I think needed to be peeled back a little deeper.
But don't you
And
guys think if the family knew, they wouldn't be pushing for this case to continue to be solved? I mean, just as recently as December 2023, they got a whole new team to look at this. And what they digitized over 2,500 pieces of evidence, 40,000 reports. They're incorporating 21,000 tips. The dad is pushing for them to use this like top of the line technology for DNA. So I just don't know that if they were guilty, well, I don't know about the mom, right? But John Ramsey has been pushing for this case to be solved. And you know what's really interesting, and I'm sorry if you guys already covered, I'll just say it really quick. The ransom amount being tied to his job is super weird. Did you guys talk about that? I can say it really quick.
No, we
Yeah.
did, but say it again, and it's super duper weird. So
It's
just
just
say it
the
again.
most random thing. $118,000 matched exactly the bonus that the dad got at his job. Somebody had to have known him, but I don't think that he knows. I think he's pushing really hard, and this is one of those cases where I hope to see victory for him. There's, nobody wins in this, but there's that. I've been with people who have gone through really tragic moments, and it's hard to believe, but they don't find peace, some of them, until they have their mystery solved with their child. So I really hope that this is one that they solve. And they're saying that something did come up new in 2023, but they're not releasing it due to the ongoing investigation.
Yeah, absolutely, Diana. And I'm getting a note that we got to start closing out. So I just want to thank everyone for joining us tonight.
Wait, 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 wait,
Debate the
wait,
News.
wait. Wait, wait, wait. I want to do the closing thoughts. Is that
Yeah,
okay?
absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you,
So,
Joseph. I appreciate that. Joseph, thank you. So, as we conclude our discussion of the Jonbenet Ramsey case, we want to return to the fundamental truth that this case represents a tragic loss of a 6-year-old child. Whatever theories we discuss, whatever evidence we examine, we must never lose sight of the human tragedy at the core of this case. Jonbenet Ramsey was a little girl whose life was cut short and whose memory deserves to be honored with dignity and respect. We hope our discussion has provided insights, not just into this particular case, but into how we as a society can better protect our children and seek justice when tragedy strikes. Truth is up for grabs, and we're here to fight it. So thank you from your host, Joseph, and myself, Adrian. You've dug into the mess with us. Now go with respect, stay kind, and watch your back. Thank you for joining us on Debate the News True Crime Edition. Jonbenet Ramsey.
good night, everyone. Thank you for joining us.